I'm Bret.
And I'm Becky.
Me and Becky have been married 28 years, and in those 28 years we've been on several adventures together. I'm a pilot, and we've flown airplanes in quite a few exciting places. We also ride motorcycles, and we've ridden all over the West a couple times, camped out along the way. And now we're going to do a little bit different adventure. We're going to take this 20-foot pontoon boat down the Tennessee River, and it's 652 miles each way. This is going to be fun.
Well, we do like adventure, but we don't like unexpected surprises, and we definitely like to be prepared. When we bought this boat, it was nothing but a floating platform. The engine was just kind of hanging off the back of it. There were no instruments, no seats, no anything, so we kind of turned it into a tent on a pontoon boat, and we're going to take it out and test it this fall to get ready for our trip next year. So y'all join us as we equip and test our boat before our big adventure. Okay, we're looking at the front of our boat, and you can see we've put an enclosure on it. Now, a complete enclosure for a pontoon boat this size starts at $3,000, and every zipper, window, screen you add, each piece costs about $100 extra. So we would probably be looking at $6,000–$7,000 for this enclosure. Okay, I'm making this enclosure out of an old cabin tent, and I took it all apart and then re-sewed the panels back together. We're going to try and launch here in just a couple of days, and you can see I'm still working on it. I still have to trim this out so the front and the sides can be snapped together, and I've got to put these little pieces on the bottom. But the entire enclosure, the most expensive part of it will be the tarp that we put on the top to finish it off to make it waterproof, and we've got about $25 in it, and I've probably got $15 in rope to tie it down. You can see that the enclosure has windows all the way around it that have screens on them. We want to be able to pull up in a cove and sit and eat and relax without having to be worried about bugs. Like I said at the beginning of this, when we got the boat, the motor was just kind of hanging off the back of it. It didn't have a gas tank, it didn't have a battery, it didn't have the trolling motor, there were no control cables hooked up to the motor at all. We had to hook all that up, and when we got everything hooked up, we found out that the motor did not run as well as the man we bought it from claimed it did. We had to rebuild the carburetor, put a new fuel pump on it, tune it up, and now it runs pretty good, but it did take us a while to get it all straightened out. Inside the boat, you can kind of get a better idea of how the enclosure is constructed. We do have the tent material with the screens and zipper doors that will open. The front, because it only had a partial hardtop, is framed out of PVC, and I also used one of those cheapy metal canopies that have the plastic cover and kind of repurposed it so it had these corners on here, and all of the metal is covered with PVC. Makes it a little more sturdy because it's 2 layers. This tent material is just snapped up around the edges, and it'll be snapped along the bottom when I get it finished. We have several battery powered LED lights, and we also have lights that we connected to the boat battery that are LED that will run. We added a metal table to set the stove on. You definitely want something metal for your stove so it doesn't catch fire or melt. Put it far enough back from the tent material because we don't want to catch it on fire. We had to have a bathroom because we are planning on staying on this boat for a while. We do have a porta potty with a tank, and we built a small shower. We'll heat water on the stove and pour it in the bucket down here. Has a pump on it, so you can wash your hair, then step in the large tub and take your shower. Another one of the things that we still have to figure out before we launch is how to mount this anchor ball. It is now law that whenever you are anchored in the day, you have an anchor ball hanging off of your boat to let other boats know you're anchored so they don't hit you, especially personal watercraft. That's a big problem. They're sliding into anchored boats and people are being injured. We are carrying a raft. This is a 4-person inflatable raft so that we can go up in coves and on islands where we can't take the boat. Just to do a little exploring and make our adventure a little more of an adventure. And like I said, when we got the boat, it was nothing but a platform with an engine hanging off the back of it that wasn't even connected. There were no seats, no table, no anything. So we built this table. You can see it's mounted on PVC. Put some cup holders on it. The seats are large Rubbermaid type containers, and we cut a board and put on top of them and foam and padded it and upholstered it so we would have seats. They are going to have backrests. They're just not made yet. Another one of the things that still has to be done. We added a sofa that also folds down and makes a bed so we can sleep at night. And there's surround sound. The speakers are all around the boat, waterproof. And we had to build the console to mount the gauges and the steering wheel. We even had to build the throttle controls and the transmission control.
Right, for the purposes of keeping a log of our trip, we put a Hobbs meter in. You can see it right here. To keep track of the hours on the boat and on the engine. We also have a secondary, kind of like a Hobbs meter. It's a Hobbs digital tachometer. It will give you a maintenance schedule on the motor, and we want to do the maintenance on it at least every 40 hours. We have to keep up with the volts, because if you know anything about boats, the charging systems are always a little bit iffy. And not only that, we put a solar panel on here too, and we have 2 different charging battery chargers. We put a VHF marine radio on here.
Is 1,416, which is 53 below normal. Yes,
you know, it is law that you monitor channel 16 and AM, FM, CD player. We also put in one of these FM transmitters, and what it does, if you're not familiar with them, it sends signal to the radio, the AM, FM radio, and you just use these little SD cards, and this one here has 500 songs on it, so that'll kind of help pass the time. We have a depth finder on here. It's also a fish finder. We're going to do a little bit of fishing, maybe not much. We're not big fishermen. We want to do some. We definitely need it for going down the river, because the channel through the Tennessee River is not that big in some areas, and we certainly don't want to run it aground. It's going to come in handy for the lake too, because this particular lake is an impounded lake, and they let the water down this time of the year. So there are going to be rocks that are just under the surface of the water, and with charts and a chart plotter, then we can, and the depth finder, we can kind of keep an eye on that. There's all kinds of apps you can get on your phone. This is the HTC One Remix phone. We just got these. These are really great phones, and we have radar that we have installed on it. It has an inclinometer, and that'll kind of tell us if our boat is listing one way or the other, so we can rebalance our boat with our water and gasoline ballast. This is the NOAA weather app. This is an actual chart plotter that I was able to download, and I did have to pay for this, but it was only like $15 or $16, and it's of the entire United States. It has the Navionics chart plotter on it. It also has sonar depth soundings, And this is really going to come in handy on the lake this time of the year and during the river, especially because in the river, you know, of course, you have to go around the barges. They can't go around you. So you have to find the shallows without running aground. We also put a 110 inverter on here just so we can run our 110 appliances, charge up our laptop, something like that. We put in a total of 6 12-volt power supplies, and these here are just rubber stoppers out of wine bottles, and to keep the moisture out. They work really good. They seal up real nice. There's 3 more over here, and of course with the baits that gauges in tachometer, voltmeter, water temperature, and speedometer, with a cigarette lighter, even though nobody on the boat smokes. Anytime you have an outboard motor, a fire extinguisher is not required, but it is the law when you are in an enclosed space. So we did have to put a regular boat fire extinguisher in here. It is fully charged. I mentioned earlier that we had a solar panel. We have one mounted up on the roof of this, and it's about 2 feet by 4 feet. The wires come down the back and run into the charge controller, and this thing will maintain the battery at roughly 14.2 volts is where it should be. And if something happens that fails, or if it's nighttime and we don't have enough power in our battery, then we have a small maintainer. And if that's not enough, we've got a bigger battery charger. Now the purpose for this bigger battery charger is if something happens, our motor quits and we have to use the trolling motor, then we can run this battery charger into our generator, and we can fire that puppy up, and we can troll until we run out of gas.
Well, the sun was really heating up in here, so we opened up all of our windows. You can see they fall out nice over the couch, over the table, the front's open, over the chair, and we have one right by the captain's chair there. Well, it's time to finish sewing this thing up so we can hit the lake, so we'll see y'all at the lake.